We are ready. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Well, let him start. Are you recording right now, Seth?
We are recording.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again, everybody, for those of you who've taken the time to show up here and be in person. And thank you for your patience with me. This has been a long time coming to actually just get this meeting and this group put together and here. It's been a lot of work, and again, thank you. I kind of just want to start off with just kind of introductions and kind of introducing the department staff and as well as, you know, the prospective members, you all. So I can go ahead and start. Again, my name is Jorge Vasquez. I'm the motorized recreation grant analyst for the division. I've been put more in charge of the development of the new statewide boat and recreation grant. I also touch a little bit on the off-highway recreation grant and a few other things in the division. But again, thank you, and I will kind of go by call. Start next with Ty.
Yeah, so Ty Hunter, I'm the boating program manager for the Division of Outdoor Recreation. A lot of familiar faces, some not familiar, so good to meet you all there. I think it's Jenny and Zach. This is the first time for me kind of seeing who you are, other than what you guys were on paper there. So just welcome. I have to say it's been a while since we've had the Boating Advisory Council together. We've got two members in here between Jason and George that served the first term with us. And I will say just thank you. This is no small feat, trying to get 9 folks that are in essence volunteering in the same room with personal commitments after hours of their already the work day and everything there. So just thank you for doing this, and big hats off to Jorge here doing this, and you'll hear from me later on with this. So
I'm Shane Stroud. I'm the Assistant Attorney General that assists the Division of Outdoor Recreation. So you'll probably see me at your meetings, and I'm here today to give you some training on the Open Public Meetings Act. So, which I know is why you've all showed up today. Something to look forward to.
I guess it's on to me. I'm George Summer. Been on the council before, and during when COVID hit, kind of really threw a wrench in everything. So always willing to participate. I've done a lot of this stuff before, so it's exciting to do things to benefit other people.
My name is Adam Eagle. First time on this council. Just excited to meet a few people and hear your thoughts and your opinions on where this direction the council should go. So excited to learn and put my 2 cents in.
We're just doing introductions.
I take it we're doing introductions, so it's to me now. I'm Jason Curry, and I'm on the council, but I'm the director of the Division of Outdoor Recreation. Thanks for being here.
I'm Jeff Salt with the Utah Anglers Coalition, and I've been a long time paddle sport enthusiast in Utah, kayaking and canoeing, and I've been immersed in a lot of navigability issues, especially on the Jordan River, and assessing navigation hazards and developing water trail plan for the Jordan River specifically, and really excited to be part of this statewide effort to see what we can do to advance boating statewide.
And if you'd like to.
Mine's like home. I'm a sailor, and I'm just interested in boating because I sail.
Awesome. Thank you. Patrick?
Hey everyone, sorry I'm not there in person, just got out of class, but I'm Patrick Morrison. I'm a recreation program director here with the Division of Outdoor Recreation. So just a staff member here to help, but just a big thank you to all of you in person, online, just for your commitment to kind of boating and just where this is going to go. I think we're all really excited. Jorge has just done a phenomenal job of kind of getting this ready, and so we look forward to serving and having your assistance. So thank you everyone.
Craig?
Evening, everybody. Craig Walker, Assistant Chief with the Division of Wildlife Resources here in Salt Lake. Technically tonight, I guess I'm in IRTA. And I am tasked also with overseeing our boating access program for the division.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Knudsen, currently in West Jordan, Utah. I'm really excited for this council. I'm an avid water sports enthusiast, both motorized and unmotorized, and also an outdoor enthusiast. And I've seen like great leaps and strides in what we've done so far to protect our lakes and reservoirs, and just want to be a part of continuing that, as well as safety, so that we can all enjoy it.
Zach?
Yeah, I'm excited to be part of this. Obviously, new volunteering. I currently live in Eden, Utah, and I'm excited to add to the conversation. I enjoy mostly just recreational with the family, motorized and not motorized water sports and activities, and also interested in the ecological concerns with some of the water bodies of water in the state, and looking forward to participating.
John?
I'm John Larson. I'm a commissioner out in Uena County, out here in God's country on the eastern side of the world. I have been with state parks as a seasonal park ranger up at Flaming Gorge for about 23 years. I have transferred over to the Daggett County Sheriff's Office, who fortunately has a boat to go out and play on the water. So I get to go out and do with that. In my off time, I play in a bathtub with my sailing boat and my motorboat. So I'm well versed in these things.
Awesome. Well, thank you all again for taking time to. Who? Jason?
Thanks. I'm Jason Taylor. I'm down in Moab, Utah. I'm the operations manager for Western River Expeditions and representing the outfitters side of the boating industry, and probably most things whitewater rafting and whitewater rivers. So like George, I've been on this board before, and I'm happy to be back and happy that it's up and going again. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, I just appreciate every single one of you for being here. Next on the item on the agenda is actually kind of swearing you all into the Voting Advisory Council. But we're kind of just waiting on that one person to be here. So we're gonna move over to Shane and the public meetings laws and rules and essentially equal fund.
All right. All right. Well, I apologize that I, for some reason, can't put this into presentation mode, so I'm just going to present.
Do we need to have you send it to him?
I will send it to Jorge. Yes, so this you can send that out to everybody, so that they have access to this after the meeting. So again, I'm Shane Stroud. I'm the Assistant Attorney General that assists the Division of Outdoor Recreation. And the reason I'm here today is both to be part of your meeting, but also to present to you on the Open Public Meetings Act. The reason I am is because the law actually requires you have this training every year. Since you didn't get it last year, you didn't get it. So you get it this year instead. I'm going to keep this brief. It's going to be a very general overview of the act. Shouldn't take more than about 15 minutes, but it is information that's helpful for you to know. Since you are a statutorily created council. So when a statute, a state law creates a council like this, the Open Public Meetings Act applies. And when it does, it means that every meeting you have is subject to it. So what is the Open Public Meetings Act? It's OPMA is an acronym for the Open Public Meetings Act, and you can find that Title 52, Part 4. If you were to look it up and you were to review it, you'd find that it's actually quite complicated. There are a lot of moving parts. But for your purposes, compliance is actually pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You have Jorge that's going to help you comply, and other folks from the division like Ty They do a great job of keeping you in line with the requirements under the Act. So, and I'll let you know as we kind of go through this training, what they do to help you out. But it's still good information for you to know as a council. So how does it apply? It applies to meetings of certain state government committees, commissions, and council, including the Voting Advisory Councils. And what does it do? Well, it advances the policy that the state agencies, political subdivisions exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business, and that they do conduct their deliberations openly. So you'll see under the Open Public Meetings Act that if you have a meeting, it's presumed to be an open meeting, which means that members of the public are encouraged and absolutely able to attend, whether it's in person or whether it's electronic. All of the business that we conduct in an open meeting is the people's business, and we conduct that in an open manner. There are certain circumstances where you would conduct a closed meeting. We'll talk briefly about that. You probably won't have occasion to hold closed meetings while you're conducting the business of the Voting Advisory Council. But if you do, we can take steps to make sure you do it the right way. So generally, what does the law require of you? It requires 4 main things. Proper notice of the meetings. This is something that Jorge will help you with. So for this meeting, for example, Jorge made sure that it was properly posted and noticed in accordance with the law. We have to provide a way for the public to attend. That means that the public can attend here at the DNR building, or they could attend online. And the notice of the meeting includes information about how to attend. It requires that we transact business in an open and transparent manner. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then it requires good record keeping. So that means keeping a recording of this meeting, which we're doing right now, that will be posted along with the meeting materials for anybody to take a look at. And it also requires that we keep minutes. Again, the minutes are something that Jorge is going to help you out with. You'll actually later today, assuming we can get you all sworn in, vote on some prior meeting minutes, and then those meeting minutes get posted again to the public website so that the public has access to them. So who does OPMA apply to? Well, like I said, it applies to the Voting Advisory Council, and it applies to meetings. So I posted in here the definition of a meeting. You'll see that it's rather long. It's somewhat complicated. The legislature actually changed this definition during the last legislative session. But essentially, what it means is that a meeting is a gathering of the body where you have a quorum present and where you're convened for the purpose of acting as that body, for receiving public comment about something, or for deliberating or taking action on something. So for example, today, you're convened in order to take some action on some minutes, maybe take some action on setting a next meeting. You're here to, I don't know if you're necessarily going to deliberate about anything, but I noticed that on the agenda, you're going to talk about chair and vice chair. So you're actually going to be thinking about that a little bit. So under the definition in the code, you're in a public meeting, and therefore the Public Meetings Act applies, and we give notice of it. We take careful records and make sure the public can attend. There are certain things that aren't meetings. So for example, if you are out boating on a reservoir and you happen to run into each other just by chance, that's not a meeting. If you guys get together, you're out on a site visit, or after you conclude a meeting, you all go and you have dinner, but you're not talking about you're not taking action on anything. You're not deliberating on anything. You're not taking public comment. That's not a meeting either. Also, where there's no quorum present. So for your purposes, a quorum is 5 or more members. So if you only have 4 members present, that's not a meeting. And then in general, where you don't deliberate about something or receive public comments or take any action, that's generally not a meeting. Those usually occur when you're out on some sort of site visit, or you're out on an educational type visit where, for example, maybe you visited a boating facility to learn more about it, but you're not deliberating about it. You're not taking public comment. That's not a meeting. You just want to make sure in those circumstances that you actually don't deliberate about anything, don't take action. You wait until you're in a public meeting to take action on anything so that members of the public can be involved in that.
Shane?
Yeah.
So all of those conditions have to be met. It's not an and or, it's a and, right?
So it's actually an or. So
Or,
yeah,
okay.
if you're convening to act, or you're convening to take public comment about a matter, or you're convening to take action, or you're convening to deliberate. Any of those circumstances, it's a public meeting.
Okay, so in this scenario, we do a site visit, there's a quorum. That establishes some baseline, but then if we're not doing any of the listed,
Exactly.
then it's not a meeting.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say actually a little bit later on, is if you do have a meeting, and that happens occasionally, especially for example with our OHB Advisory Council. The OHB Advisory Council might do some sort of ride where they go, and for example, last fall they did a ride where they went and looked at a trail down near Eureka that involved some archaeological interests, and they learned about this trail and they learned about those interests. That even though there was a quorum present, it wasn't a meeting because they weren't receiving public comment, they weren't taking any action, they weren't deliberating about anything. They later then had a meeting where they talked about the ride, they took public comment, they made action, and then it became a meeting. But that social gathering or that learning gathering, it wasn't a meeting under the Public Meetings Act.
So I know that, like with Salt Lake City Council, which I've had a lot of experience with, if you have a meeting with more than 3 council members, it has to be noticed. Even if there's no deliberation action, just having a meeting with more than 3 council members constitutes a noticeable meeting.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you get into the weeds with some of this stuff.
Yeah, sure. That's a good observation. I mean, for whenever we have some sort of meeting, especially here at the DNR building, or where people come together and sit around a table, we notice that as a public meeting. It's usually only when we're having a dinner or something in conjunction with the meeting. It's in another location besides Salt Lake, where it's clearly just a social gathering. You're not talking about anything that has to do with business of the council, or you're learning about something and you're not taking any action. Those types of gatherings we usually don't notice as meetings because they're there to enhance the knowledge of the various folks and not for them to deliberate.
And several years ago, during stream access deliberations, we had tours with legislators. We had public notice of those meetings. And so that was tricky because we were doing extensive tours throughout northeastern or northern Utah, and to try to say, oh, these people want to come along. Well, we had to arrange for transportation for everybody and make sure everybody knew where they were going.
Well, if you're inviting members of the public to take public comment, then
no, these were not public comment. They were just a tour site visit to see, what the public stream access issues were, but we still had to notice it through the legislature.
So the law has changed recently. So there's a brand new definition of meeting. It may have been at that time that the definition required that type of notice.
Okay.
But just like I said, if you're truly having just a social gathering, or your gathering is one where you're just learning about something, but you're not taking action, you're not deliberating, you're not taking public comment, generally those don't fall into the definition.
Thanks.
Yeah. So when and where does OPA apply? Well, it applies to all meetings, and we just talked about the definition of meetings, what those are, both open and closed. Most of the meetings you have are going to be open. There might be some meetings that will be closed. If you do have a closed meeting, you have to do it in a certain way, and there are only very few types of meetings that can be closed under the law. So first of all, to close a meeting, you have to have a quorum present, and then 2/3 of the members that are in attendance need to vote to close the meeting. Like I said, it can only be for specific purposes like discussion of pending litigation, certain discussions about real property values, discussions about health or competence of board members. There are a few other reasons you could have it. Most of the time, this isn't going to be something you need to worry about, but if it does, Jorge and I, Kai, Jason, we can help you get ready for that closed meeting if it's necessary. If you have a closed meeting, the chair has to announce the reason for the meeting. During the open portion of the meeting, they have to announce where the closed meeting will be held and the names of those that voted to close that meeting. The council has to keep a recording, not just minutes of the closed meeting, and state on the recording where it was held and the names of those present. And then there are certain requirements as far as minutes and sworn statements connected to the closed meeting. Again, we don't need to get into the weeds there about it. But if you ever need to close a meeting, we can help you with it. The most important thing to know about a closed meeting is this. You cannot take any action during a closed meeting. The only vote you can take during a closed meeting is to reopen the meeting. You can have a closed meeting to discuss litigation or certain real property issues, but all it is to discuss it. You have to then go back into open meeting before you make any type of vote on those issues. So for that purpose, for that reason, resolutions, rules, contracts, or appointments must be confirmed or passed in open meetings. They can't be done in closed meetings. And I know we have our notary here. I don't know if you're in a time crunch or.
No, I apologize that we weren't able to get everybody done before, but
You're good. I just have a few more minutes left and then we can move on to that. So, okay, so
go upstairs while you're doing that.
Okay, how should you comply? When in doubt about whether the council is meeting, consult with the division. So to your point, if there was any type of doubt as to whether what you were doing is actually a meeting or whether instead it's some sort of social gathering, raise that to our attention so we can take a good look at it. We want to make sure that if it is in fact a meeting, we notice it just like we should under the law. Most of the time, as I said, in fact, probably every meeting you ever have will be noticed as a public meeting. But if we ever have something that's not, we probably will have considered that already. Consult the code and the electronic meeting policy to ensure electronic meetings are carried out consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act requirements. In the last meeting, which was in 2023, we actually passed a resolution that lays out the requirements for our electronic meetings. We can always circulate a copy of that to you if you want to take a look at it. But generally what it says is that in electronic meeting, there has to be a way for the public to attend the meeting and participate in the meeting. And it has some language as to how you take votes during the meeting. Like I said, we can share a copy of that with you. If the council anticipates a meeting will be closed, identify that possibility in advance and consult with the division so we can get that on the agenda and plan to properly close the meeting and properly record that closed meeting. And then ensure proper notice of meetings, both regular and emergency meetings. You probably would never have an emergency meetings. The notice requirements for those are in the code, but most of the time, Jorge is going to be helping you make sure that we comply with the notice requirements. This is a really important one. Make sure you have all items of business and especially all items you plan to vote on in the agenda. If it's not included in the agenda, you can't act on it during the meeting because the public hasn't properly gotten notice of it. Keep an audio or audio and video recording of each meeting and keep minutes. This is something that the division will help you with. We're recording this meeting. Jorge will keep minutes and will post draft minutes after the meeting is concluded and bring those to you for approval at the next meeting. And then keep copies of all materials introduced during an open meeting. So if somebody circulates a document during an open portion of the meeting or receives a document from the public during an open meeting, that's part of the record and we include it in the materials that we post online. Final thoughts. Biggest way to run afoul of the Open Public Meetings Act is by taking action outside of a duly called meeting or by closing a meeting that should be open. To avoid those pitfalls, take action only during properly noticed council meetings and be sure to discuss the need to close meetings in advance. Take votes by roll call whenever holding an electronic meeting. It makes recording the votes easier. If it's a unanimous vote, you don't actually need to take the vote by roll call. But if there's a split in the vote and you do have folks online, then you do need to take those votes by roll call. This is to your point. Don't conduct council business at social gatherings or during site visits. Keep those social or focused on learning. Wait until you convene at the next council meeting to discuss and vote on potential action. So go ahead and learn while you're there, whatever you want to learn, but then wait until you get to a council meeting to discuss taking action on that so that it's in a properly noticed public meeting and the public is part of that. And then allowing public attendance is important, but you don't have to tolerate disruptive behavior. So if you have somebody that is disruptive to a meeting, you can ask that person to leave. I have yet to have that happen in any meeting, but it's always a possibility. Okay, so finally, last thing is I've included a link on this presentation. I will send it to Jorge so he can send it to all of you and to those online. And it includes a training that is offered through the Division of State Archives. I reviewed that training before I prepared this presentation. It's substantially the same as what I've told you today, but if you ever have any questions, it's very brief. It only takes about 10 minutes to complete it, and it's kind of entertaining. So if you ever have any questions or you want more information about the Open Public Meetings Act, you can always go and click on that presentation and get a refresher. And you're always welcome to contact me if you have any questions. I also work carefully with Jorge and with Ty to make sure we stay on track during. So that's your OPMA training. Done.
So my first question is about public participation. So does the council then define the procedures and rules for public participation, or are there some minimum requirements? So I will use the Wildlife Board and the RACs. They have a really tough public participation set of rules. It makes it arguably difficult to participate in those meetings. So is it up to the council or the whatever body that is having the meetings to set those rules?
Yes. So the Wildlife Board and the RACs, I'm not familiar with their public participation rules, but those don't apply here. The interesting thing about the Open Public Meeting Act is that it doesn't actually require you allow public participation, which is a little odd since it is all about making sure members of the public are included. With that said, it's a good idea to allow members of the public to participate. How you do that is up to you. Sometimes it happens more organically, like if you have something you're discussing and a member of the public wants to chime in and talk about it. If it's not disruptive, it doesn't get you off track or get you off schedule, that's perfectly appropriate. Other councils here within DNR set aside a specific portion of the meeting for public participation, and they give a certain amount of time to each member of the public who wants to participate. You can do that too. It's really up to you guys as to what you feel is the best way to allow for public participation.
So like with the RACs and the Wildlife Board, they don't allow online active participation. You have to submit written comments and that's it. It's silent. You can listen in on the meetings, but you can't participate. But if you go in person, then you can make a public comment, oral public comment, and you can comment when they ask for public comments on any action item. But virtually, they have this whole different standard, and it is really frustrating. And I would like to see a council like this to be, as if it doesn't interrupt with the operation of the council, to allow people to comment as we go through the meetings.
Sure, and you can certainly allow for that type of online comment. I know with the Wildlife Board and with the RACs, there is a lot of interest in those meetings. And so occasionally it can, if you were to allow everyone to kind of comment organically without setting some sort of limits, you'd probably never be able to finish with those meetings. I don't anticipate you'll have the same problem. I hope you guys have a lot of interest and that becomes a problem you have to reckon with. I don't anticipate it will. So you might be able to set different rules, different expectations, but again, it's up to you guys.
And then my last question would be access to public records. So this body then would be subject to GRAMA requests, and how would this council, I'm sure that we're going to be providing minutes and agendas, but would there be situation that we could envision where we would have other documents that could be accessed through GRAMA requests, and how do we respond to those?
So that's a whole other ball of wax, but the short answer to your question is everything that gets introduced in this meeting, the agenda, the minutes, all of those are public records subject to GRAMA, and they're all going to get posted online. So if a member of the public requested those records, we would just point them to where they're posted online and they can go hold them. As to your other question, let's say that you're exchanging emails with another member of the council and it's about council business. That's potentially a government record. And if you were asked to provide it, we'd of course need to look at it through the lens of the law, because not everything is public. It might not be public, and we have to determine it on a case-by-case basis. You're still going to be asked to look for it. I think a best practice for you, and this is something I've recommended for folks in the past, is to have a separate email for your council business. You can just set it up for free through Google. And that way, if you do get a request, you can always just say, hey, Jorge, here's my password for this. Go and download my emails and search them for me. That way, you don't have to intermix your government business with your private business. It's a lot easier for you to do it that way.
Good point.
Pesky reporters like see emails.
And who's on the emails?
And we can
That's
always
a great thing.
we can always work with you to dig through your personal accounts, but it's going to take you a lot of time and it's going to take us a lot of time. Yeah. That's why I carry two cell phones. One is my personal phone, one's my work phone. I never do any type of business on my personal phone. It's all on my work phone, so that if anyone says, we need to look through your phone, I can, here you go. So that's another issue. Like with your phone, you might text message about things with the council. You can do that. Just know it might be a public record. So you may want to communicate mainly with email, so that if there is a public records request, it takes email as opposed to a text message. That's up to you, but things to keep in mind. Any other questions about Open Public Meetings Act? Like I said, you're welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. You can reach out to Jorge and Ty, and they can pull me into it. Happy to help you guys in any way I can. All right. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Shane. I appreciate it. We didn't get to introduce Steve Bullock with that back there, so please, Steve, introduce yourself.
Hi. I'm Steve Bullock. I'm the Chief of Law Enforcement for the Division of Outdoor Recreation. As we move into my county agenda later, we're going to talk about Division of Law Enforcement and the changes there. I'll be a major over the supervision of the ranger side of things. So working in the boating aspect, off-highway vehicle, sovereign lands, and state parks. So that's there. I just appreciate what you guys are doing, and I know there's several new folks on here, and others that have been involved in boating and the outdoors for a long time, and we look forward to hearing you and serving you and seeing what we can do to help.
Thank you, Steve. And we have another Steve. Yep. And he's our notary guy, so I'll let you do your thing. You're also on your agenda for swearing us in, so.
Yes, yeah. So, and I've got a few who did do it virtually. John Larson, DeWitt Smith, Zachary Williams, and Jenny Knudsen. I believe that Tim is virtual, so I might have to work on getting his. And you tell me, is it okay to get this after the board meeting, or do I need to still do it virtually for Tim Herzog since he's virtually?
You would need to. Do you have his? You don't have his information yet.
I mean, I don't have his signature yet. He hasn't signed the oath yet.
Okay.
He's not online either right now.
We could get that after.
Afterwards. I didn't know how what constitutes a full quorum for a meeting.
We're good on it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So then it would just be those present who we would still want to have take that oath, and I can catch the other ones later that aren't here present live. That is.
So we have. Yeah, we don't have a quorum in the room. No, so our quorum is, we have a quorum, we have more than a quorum present. The quorum is made up of those here in the room and online.
Right.
So.
Right. And so the people that are, Jeffrey Salt's here. Okay, Jeffrey, sorry. Adam Eagle. Okay. Jason Taylor.
Jason's online.
So I'll have to do him virtually. And George Summer. Okay. So you three, we could go ahead and have you state your oath, and then sign it, and sign my little book here, and then I can get a copy of those signed ones after, and then I'll have to do the other two virtually at some other point, I guess.
Okay. That's fine. So will we have? Can you swear those that are online?
I can't do them online. because it has to go through the notary system, the
So
wrong
then-
system.
If he swears the 3 that are in the room today,
And I got 4 that's online.
you have to swear as well.
No, I got 4 already that are
Oh,
online.
you've already got
John-
4. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Okay,
John
so we're,
DeWitt.
yeah,
and
we're good. Yeah, apologize. It was
Jenny and Zachary.
Okay.
So that
We're
would
good
be a total of.
So the only 2 we have left is Jason Taylor and Tim Hartson.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we'd have 3 and then we got 4, that's 7. If that's.
Yep. We're
Okay.
just fine.
Okay. Do we want to go ahead and do that now then? Okay. And so, I'll have you come over and this, and like Jorge, we were both joking because we're both kind of new at doing what we're doing here. I'll probably have you come over and sign this book and your document, after we go ahead and do the oath. So if you can, stand up and then raise your right arm. Okay, and
I guess you want to stand up, right?
yeah. And then you'll just repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
We'll go ahead and have you come over here. And
Need our IDs, right?
yeah, I'll need your IDs. Don't personally know you, but we'll someday probably, eventually. Yes, go ahead. Okay, sign there with this blue pen, actually, if you will. Okay. And sign right there, and I'm just.
Let me pick my name.
No, it's all right. Just sign, I'll just fill in the rest of the blanks, just make it faster for you.
And you want the ID?
Good. Thank you.
Yep.
And next.
And things, sir.
Yep. One more one.
Any of these?
Yeah, it'll be yours. Right there. Here it is. Right there. Okay. And then just right there. Yep, thank you. Lose more pens that way. Okay. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
I'll just continue to do my stamping while you guys go ahead and continue on, because that just leaves the other 2, and I'll get those virtually in. And they're not on, I think Tim is, right?
Tim is not on.
Okay.
Jason Taylor's on.
Jason Taylor, I can do this, I mean, anytime tonight, if they want to get it done tonight or tomorrow. Is fine. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Okay, well, we can move over to the next piece of the items on the agenda with voting for a chair and vice chair. I had sent out an email previously to kind of see what, to let you all know about it and see who is interested in it. So I'd love to kind of just open it up for you all to kind of discuss and present. If you're interested in being the chair first, we'll start with chair first.
Did anybody show interest in doing
It's a pretty fun gig, y'all, so.
Well, I don't mind doing something like that. I've had experience in co-chairing the Statewide Watershed Coordinating Council with the Division of Water Quality, and I've been the president of the board of the Jordan River Parkway Foundation, chair of the Salt Lake City's Mayor's Open Space Committee. So I'm familiar with running meetings and dealing with personalities. So if nobody's interested, I'll I'll step up.
Awesome. Is there anybody else that's wanting to take that on that role? If not, y'all can kind of open it up.
Well, one member can make a motion that we vote by acclamation. Can we do that? Sure. Jeff Schultz would be the only nominee.
Certainly.
Larson will so move that one.
Motion by John Larson.
Second.
Second that.
Okay, second by Adam Meikle.
Open for discussion.
Yeah, sorry, we haven't done that yet. So, any discussion?
I think it sounds great.
I feel like I'm in the military.
No, not really. And I gotta remember Robert's rules on those, and I guess all those in favor. Say aye.
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 Okay.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
Any opposed?
Okay.
Any abstention?
So motion passes
Yeah,
unanimous.
so your motion passes, so Jeff Salt is chair.
Congratulations.
So the next one,
Thank you.
say,
Thank you.
with you as chair, would you run the motions chair as for selection of the vice chair who would be filling in your absence?
Okay. So we'll open up discussion and nominations for vice chair. If there are any individuals that would like to put their name forward and speak about their availability and interest in working in that role, I'll open it up for comment.
I think it makes sense that someone who's been a part of this council prior be the vice chair.
That sounds good. So there's two.
I don't know. Just had to be in front of me.
So is
I
that,
don't care. If George wants to do it, that'd be great.
so Mr. Chair, maybe.
I guess I don't mind doing it either. Whatever.
Yeah, either way, I'm okay doing it.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I said we can open up for nominations. So if there are also nominations from the council members, I like the idea of an experienced person, but if there's any other nominations that would like to be put forward. Okay, hearing no responses, then I guess we'll close the discussion and nominations, and I'll be asking for a motion to support Jason as a vice chair.
And see, that would be.
No.
I make a motion, support Jason's vice chair.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and second. Any, is there any discussion?
No, it's like I say, I'm happy to do it, but I will probably be virtual most of the time, depending on what's going on, the time of year and everything. So just everybody's fine with that, you know.
Okay, yep, that sounds fine. And I'll be pretty reliable too, so, but thanks, I appreciate that. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of Jason Taylor being appointed, elected as our vice chair, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, it looks like it passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Leadership on the council, it's awesome. And then just so you all are aware, I'll be working really closely with you to kind of build out those agendas so that we're a little bit more prepared for future meetings, and so you have a better understanding kind of the layout of it. So same thing with Jason. So
there was a hand.
And then
I guess there, we'll turn the rest of the agenda over to you.
Wow, now
This time.
all of a sudden I've got new responsibilities. Okay. So let's see. Am I looking at the forward thing right here?
It'll be in the, it's in this packet.
Oh, this back.
And approve the meeting minutes.
Yeah, so let's, public meetings law, okay, information. Approving the minutes. So, I've not seen the minutes for the March 2023 meeting, right? Have other people seen
I
the
had
minutes?
sent them out to, on the meeting, notice. Calendar.
So, refer to these are the minutes, right?
Yes, those are the draft minutes.
So I'll refer everybody, if you would, take a look at the draft minutes that you may have electronically or hard copy. Not having been there, I personally would not be able to comment as to whether the content of the minutes is accurate or complete.
We're just the only one that can actually comment on that.
Yeah, I'm just breezing through it, but
Maybe Jason.
Well, because these minutes were from 2023, right? March 14th, 2023. I couldn't tell you how correct they are either, but I would make a motion to approve the minutes from the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 Voting Advisory Council.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And a second by George Summer. Any discussion or comments about the minutes? From our two educated members.
Seems like it's good to me.
George, are you good with the minutes?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I seconded it.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, so we'll have a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay, okay. And so now we have communication of what the meetings.
There we go. Awesome. Yeah, I'll talk on that one a little bit. And I can share my screen here. Just to kind of give you an idea of where you guys are really going to be really working on, where you're going to be working out of really, for when you receive applications for like the grants for the voting, the Utah Voting Recreation Grant, as well as the Clean Vessel Act, as well as the voting access. I just want to make sure you all are aware of what the folder really looks like, and that's where you're going to be getting all your information. So again, let me share my screen here. Just slow. This right here. Just want to make sure that you all online can see that. I'll be sharing this to you all to just kind of so you have access to it. This is like I'd mentioned previously, it kind of has your roster there as well as the actual kind of more of like a draft meeting dates of what we kind of have planned out, and I can go more in depth into that here in a second. But like I'd mentioned, I'll share this folder with you. We'll have that folder for the voting grants where it's separated out into the 3 grants for the Utah Voting Recreation Grant, as well as the Clean Vessel Act, and as well as the Voting Access Grant. And that's where you'll see your applications and work out of to kind of review the actual application and score. And then we have our actual bylaws folders here, down here a little bit onto the further down the agenda. We have some homework for you all to kind of look at some of our current bylaws that are outdated, as well as kind of some recommended bylaws for you to take a look at that there. And like I said, we can go a little bit more in depth, but again, just to give you an idea of where you'll be working out of for the actual work for the Voting Advisory Council. And that's just a short piece there. So that's all I really have on that section.
Okay. Thank you, Jorge. So then I guess we're moving down to item number 7. And is that a presentation by?
It's more of like just kind of explaining what the grants are going to be. So for this first one, again, this is a new statewide voting recreation grant. just kind of put more into legislation in the previous year, if I'm more correct on that. But there's a couple of different things that the grant can actually do. It has 4 different eligible entities in the sense that it covers your water conservancy districts, your state entities, your municipalities, and that includes your cities and counties. And then for the actual eligible projects on it, it goes into the actual development of boating facilities. That can look like your boat docks, your ramps, your public restrooms. And that's, again, this is a really big thing for you all to kind of understand and take a look at, especially since this is in its development phase and it's in its infancy stage. It's still right now. So I'm really excited to give you more of an idea on that. The second thing that kind of goes into is your waterway shoreline protection. And that's more of like that erosion aspect for our reservoirs and lakes. Another thing that goes into is your drought access mitigation. That's more into the actual extension of your boat ramps from the research and as I've been traveling throughout the state. Another thing, it goes into the alternative access development points for your non-motorized users. The thing that I have been kind of seeing as I've been speaking with park managers throughout the state, the issues that they're having at the actual reservoirs and at the ramps is congestion, and there's safety concerns. And so they're trying to separate the non-motorized users with the motorized users and separating that use and essentially dispersing that use throughout the reservoirs and lakes. So it's going to be a really good opportunity there for this specific grant. That's something that's super exciting. You can look into another aspect that's like super exciting is the actual boating search and rescue specific for boating recreation. That's super exciting there. Again, it's more into the law kind of lays it out as more boating search and rescue equipment. So I'm excited to kind of see what we kind of define as boating search and rescue equipment. From my conversations with Ty, it's been kind of looking at some maybe potentially drones, the remotely operated vehicles, so your ROV equipment for that. And for more of the recovery phase of the search and rescue, which is super important for our search and rescue teams to have. So again, just to give you an idea, that's some of the brief line items of that actual boating grant and some of those things that will cover. Another thing that I had on here was the actual Clean Vessel Act. While that's not a new funding opportunity, it's been around for a while, but we had received one application for it, whereas I think the last application we had for it was 4 years ago. And I think that's been mostly just because we didn't really necessarily have the resources to actually promote and help market that grant to the public. And so having those resources now, we were able to receive one application. And again, that's something that you all are going to be taking a look into. As we market the grant more towards everybody, we had this really awesome grants tour where I was able to present on the Clean Vessel Act and the Boating Recreation grant. So I've been doing some of the work to present those funding opportunities throughout the state of Utah. But again, in terms of what that Clean Vessel Act kind of covers, it goes into the education of why boating recreationalists shouldn't be dumping out their sewage out into the waterways, as you know, that it's damaging to our waterways. And so it's educating them and showing them to where the pump out stations and dump stations are throughout the state, as well as the actual operation and development of those pump out and dump stations. So just to give you some ideas of what those grants really look like. And Craig Walker is actually on this call, so I'm super excited to have him kind of give a brief overview of what that boating access grant is going to look like.
Hi, everyone. Don't get too excited. With the Division of Wildlife Resources, I oversee 2 programs that are Fish and Wildlife Service programs. These are funds that are granted to the Division of Wildlife Resources and then allocated to proponents of proposals as sub-grantees. The first of which is the Boater Access Grant. That Boater Access Grant is eligible for anything boating, non-motorized, motorized, that is related to boating access. That includes parking, docks, ramps, restrooms, fish cleaning stations, you name it. If it's associated with a boating access site and the primary use of that facility is by boaters, then that is eligible for funding through that program. That program does require a 25% match. Historically, that match was provided by state parks. That match is now provided by the Division of Outdoor Recreation. And with the money that we bring to bear from the Fish and Wildlife Service, alongside of those matching funds, we usually have around $1.5 million for project monies every year. That program last year actually doled out, I believe we put out $2.8 million on the street because we had taken a year off. The reason why we took a year off was to get our ducks in a row as far as trying to wrap our minds around deferred maintenance. One of the things that we have found out with boater surveys nationally and in Utah is that boaters don't necessarily want new things, they want well-maintained things. And, you know, even this year and historically, we do a lot of creation of new access sites, new access points, new ramps. And we're relying on our program partners primarily to come forward with maintenance needs. That has not been happening. So what Ty, Jorge, and I have been working on over the past 2 years is the creation of an app that allows us as boating program administrators to enter in information related to the condition of facilities statewide, which will allow you all as a group to gauge whether or not we have maintenance needs that need to be met prior to investing in new projects moving forward. And we anticipate that that tool will be ready for everybody to use and view those data starting next year. The second program that we oversee here in the Division of Wildlife Resources is called BIG. As I mentioned, that is the Boating Infrastructure Grant Program. That is designed to provide funding to states in 2 ways. One, in a non-competitive fashion, each state is awarded $250,000 a year to invest in sites that are considered to be for transient boats that are 26 feet or greater in length. And primarily that money is invested in marine coastal environments. However, we investigated, I believe, 8 years ago now, investigated the use of those funds, the eligibility of those funds for use in Utah, and found that Lake Powell, Bear Lake, and Flaming Gorge Reservoir are eligible locations for the use of those funds because of the large boats that frequent those waters and the fact that they do have transient boatings, point-to-point boating, where mooring takes place for up to 15 days at a time. So we did make use of those funds 4 years ago over a multiple year situation. We did not use the competitive grant, which I'll explain in a little while. We used the allocation of $250,000 2 times in a row to improve the marina at Lucerne up at Flaming Gorge Reservoir. So those projects are in the offing as well if they are proposed by our partners at those 3 waters that I mentioned. In addition to the $250,000 that is available to us every year in a non-competitive fashion in Utah, there is also an opportunity for us to put forward proposals for a competitive big grant, boater infrastructure grant, which can be millions of dollars. In the event that we do see drawdowns at Flaming Gorge, Lake Powell, and we need to work with our partners there to reorient some of the marina facilities down there, I envision that being something that we pursue in the future. Those monies all do require match. That match is usually put forward not by one of us in the division or outdoor recreation, but by one of the project partners on the ground or one of their sponsors. And that's the two areas that I oversee.
Greg, when you mentioned the competitive grants, those are competitive nationally, right?
That is correct.
Anybody else with questions?
Thanks.
Hey, Craig, real quick, you said that part of that big grant was used at Lucerne. What did they do at Lucerne to get that money?
So long ago, we had the tire breakwater there. That tire breakwater had degraded and fallen apart because we learned that tire breakwaters aren't a good thing, but didn't know that 50 years ago. We replaced that with a hanging concrete panel breakwater, and then went back in and paved over that with some slips and docks that were available for those transient boats.
Greg, I have another question. So does the division develop any kind of a prioritization list of potential projects around the state?
So right now, that's what the tool that I mentioned before, which we're going to call the Boat Utah app. It's going to be analogous to Fish Utah and serve two masters. The data will provide boaters with trip planning information, if you will, based upon queries that they submit. But those data will also let us take stock of all of our boating access facilities. And based upon estimates of useful life, if we've actually invested federal dollars, we'll have those dates of when they were installed and how long the useful life of a facility should be, or the condition that we've come up with, which is kind of a Likert scale, 1 through 7, as far as good, bad, and different. Based upon those ratings and those useful lives, that gives us the ability to calendar our maintenance needs out through time. Once we've been able to calendar those out through time, those are the data that we anticipate presenting to this group to allow them to balance maintenance needs and new project requests. It also allows us, and I envision maybe long-term this council, going out and visiting with potential proponents and saying, hey, we've got projects that are in need of happening on your property based upon our estimates of useful life or condition of your facilities. In order to avoid deferred maintenance, would you be willing to submit a project this year? That's what we did this year at Strawberry Reservoir. When you all get to project review for the 2020 fiscal year 2026 projects, you'll see that there's 6 projects, I believe, that came through for Strawberry Reservoir. That was a result of us reaching out to them and saying, hey, get your ducks in a row, because the public is coming to us and saying Strawberry is a disaster right now. And our response to them is, we're not the land management agency, right? So we had to reach out actively to Strawberry and solicit their submission of proposals this year. I envision that being more normal, but right now we're relying on boater complaints rather than actual data. So long and the short of it, we'll be reaching out to our partners, hopefully in coordination with this group, collaboration with this group, to make sure that they are getting their project proposals in.
Is that the same with like Lake Powell? Do you tell Lake Powell they need to apply for this grant, or do you apply for it on behalf of like Lake Powell and then turn the money over to the recreation area?
Right. So we would work with NPS to get work done in Lake Canyon. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Jorge or Craig?
Just a quick question, Craig. You may have kind of covered this, but the boater app to kind of identify needs, that will cover all bodies of water, even those federally managed. Just thinking of like Pine View and Strawberry, which you pointed out.
Yeah, it will be every water body in the state that has boating access is what we're going to be taking inventory of.
Fantastic. Great.
Just a point of by the way, please. Last month, the Outdoor Adventure Commission received project interest forms for different funding projects throughout the state. One of those was a Lucerne program for reconstruction. And although we decided to direct them to this group and there's a new grant, the commission did award $200,000 towards to Daggett County for something at Lucerne. We're going to set up a meeting with the county to determine how best to put that money. Just FYI.
Great. Well, these are great questions and comments. So I like to encourage people to participate and ask questions in the meeting. So anytime you feel like, don't feel embarrassed, chime in and ask a question. It's very appropriate. Okay. Is there more to your item on this agenda, Jorge?
I think I covered everything on that.
Okay, thank you. So I guess now we're on to the current and proposed bylaws.
So yes, I can speak on this one again. Just to give you an idea and kind of overview, I can share my screen here of the current bylaws and just kind of the situation that we have with that. Obviously, this is what I have in that sense. These were approved in their current from 2018. And that was prior to the division being formed, the Division of Outdoor Recreation. So to show you in essence what I'm meaning and what I mean by that is that, again, on here in terms of authority, it has the Boating Advisory Council is formed by the Board of Parks and Recreation, which is not. At this point in time, I think if anything, it would be the Outdoor Adventure Commission in terms of the actual authority power, but
It would be the authority, would be the legislature of the creation of that, correct?
The creation of
The voting advisory council.
so the voting advisory council was the statute allows for the creation of the voting advisory council. The council is actually created through the division's administrative rule. Yeah, I think that's right. The OAC would really have much authority here.
okay. Well, regardless, in that sense, I mean, my point with this is that they're outdated bylaws, and so they need to be updated. And this is your all's document. We did go in there and make some adjustments to a different document, which again I can show you. All this you should have access to, and I'll give you access to the actual folder itself to where these are hosted. Because again, that's going to be your guys' homework for the next council meeting, is actually discussing on that and seeing what you guys want to move forward with. So I'll present on the other ones. Again, these are just recommendations from us, the division, as to what we thought would be kind of best. But again, this is your guys' document, and it's up to you to really decide what would be best for the council, as well as what would be best in terms of representing the public. So,
Can I just say a couple of things about this? So the code and the administrative rule don't actually provide express authority for enacting bylaws, but you still need some sort of way to conduct your business. That could be a resolution. It could be some sort of policy that you enact. But we found in the past that one of the easiest ways to do that is through these types of bylaws that you enact as a council. So these bylaws are actually modeled after bylaws that we use for the OHV Advisory Council, and they work pretty well. And just like Jorge said, just because it works for them doesn't necessarily mean it works for you. So review these. If you feel like this is something that would work for you, you could adopt it, you could change it, you could move to a resolution, move to a policy, whatever might help you to make sure that when you are in session, you have a way to work that's going to work for you and that makes sense to you. So it also helps for continuity because, you know, new members come on, you rotate off the council, kind of helps to have something you can hand to somebody and say, hey, this is how we do business here on the council. That's the way you can think of it going.
Thank you, Shane. That's pretty much it on that. I just wanting you all to know that it needs to be updated. So.
I'll make a comment about this. I've been involved with a lot of nonprofit boards and bylaws. If you're not familiar with working with bylaws, they are crucial, as Shane was saying. And if you take notice of the draft from the previous bylaws at the end, there's a provision for amending bylaws. And that's always really critical in an organization as to what cycle are you allowed by your own governing laws to change your own governing laws. Some organizations only allow it on an annual basis at an annual meeting. And this bylaw looks like it allows for amendments, alterations, changes, or the bylaws being repealed at any regular meeting. So I like that. It's a flexible out or an opportunity for us to have the bylaws be organic. And I'm a big proponent of organic bylaws because we never know, especially with a new group, and we're all new working together. 6 months from now, we may run into some kind of a stumbling block, and we need to be able to address it through the bylaws. And so having that flexibility, that was the first thing that I looked for. Yeah, was the ability to amend the laws without being strangled for a period of time and not being able to act.
Yes, you're exactly right. You can amend them or repeal them at any time. And you'll notice as you review these, we don't expect you to review them during this meeting entirely, but these are very generic. Right now, they're pretty pared down and just kind of speak to the general duties of the council, the roles of the chair and the vice chair, how you conduct meetings, forums, etc. So yeah, you could add to, detract from, subtract from, amend to your heart's content.
But at the same time, it's important that people don't look to use the bylaws to subvert the functioning of an organization, because that happens a lot in nonprofits. So I'm kind of a hawk on this stuff. And I'm a legal assistant, so I look at things from a legal perspective also a lot of times. But I would encourage everybody then to spend time even during the holidays and the next month until we have our next meeting to really take a serious look at these and see if there's anything that is glaring that we can't live with.
And like I've mentioned, that there's those the recommended ones from us. So be sure to take those and then take a look at those, as well as the actual current ones that are currently in use. So,
and if there are any bylaws that you're familiar with other entities or organizations that you've been involved with in the past that sound like they might be a good fit to propose, I'd say feel welcome to borrow those and recommend them. Okay. Any questions about the bylaws or any comments? Okay. All right. Well, updates. Is that you again, Jorge?
Actually, be me.
Okay. Hi.
Be me with that one there.
Thank you.
Jorge will be bringing up PowerPoint up here with that. This drives me crazy that I'm sitting down and presenting. So sorry, you're getting me out of my skin here a little bit by doing this, but I will make it through. So voting program, we've gone through some changes. I think between Jason and George, when we were doing this, that was just brand new. When we were just like, hey, we're no longer the Division of Parks and Recreation. It was a splitting of the divisions from the Division of Parks and Recreation to the Division of State Parks and the Division of Outdoor Recreation. And so there's been a lot of change in that aspect. There's been a lot of just trying to get an entity, a state agency up and running and moving, and keeping our programs so where we're still providing the services to the public as we're doing so. Since we can kind of get there. So no, you're good. I'm glad it's him doing it, not me. There you go. I usually freak out and panic at this point in time with that. So let's move to the next one with there. Just a little bit of an overview, just what the voting program, what's going on with that. This is going to be a very cliff notes of what the program is moving and doing, moving on with. Next will be with a DNR law enforcement update. Again, we're going to cruise over that pretty quickly because that in itself could almost be a meeting as it is to explain what was going on there. Aquatic invasive species. I'm perusing over that. If Craig has anything he wants to speak up with, I will leave that open for Craig if he wants to. But I'm just going to tell you what's occurring within the aquatic invasive species program, some things that will be affecting it. And then lastly, the legislative update with that. Go ahead. So the voting program itself, we're all about education and safety, enforcement, accident investigation, with it, navigation. We have safe navigable waters. A lot of this we focus upon on the state managed waterways as we focus there. Commercial boating. So commercial boating deals with our commercial outfitters, our liveries. It'll also deal with our boat dealers with that, and issuance of dealer, kind of like dealer plates for boat dealers to go and test and have their test drive for their clients to go out and learn more about the boat and see if that's the boat they want to have with that. The other one on there is just to showcase also is our remotely operated vehicle, an ROV. Our division, this program has two of those. We have the Pioneer, which is our oldest one, and then the newer one that we have up here is the Angler. We've actually named them at this point in time instead of ROV1 and ROV2. So got to get names with stuff there. But this is something where our division is giving back to the public, especially in a sad situation. This is a recovery vehicle with this. And so if somebody loses their life, we're trying to get closer to their family, get their loved one back to them so that closure and that grievance process can be starting at that, that time and help them along in that. So that's one of our pieces of giving back with that. So and then just everything total, just voting is what we're dealing with is what this program is about. So an update. We've added some different people. I'm getting some help, and it's just great that we're seeing this. We've got Lieutenant Brian Curta. He's going to be the assistant for the voting program. With it, if I was going to put it at the national level, I'm called the voting law administrator for the state of Utah. Brian would be the assistant voting law administrator for the state. So he'll be filling in my stead when I cannot be attending and representing the state on a national scale and also on regional scales. But then on just day to day too is Brian's learning the ropes and kind of moving with there. So some of the items I just kind of threw through here is specialized boating training. That's what Brian's going to be responsible for in that aspect. Patrol, more or less a mentor focused patrol. He's going to be out there with either other lieutenants and sergeants to just the rangers that are out there and showing them and teaching and also learning about what's being implemented in the field. And maybe we need to come back and address something in our training with that. The Carrying Passengers for Hire program, Brian is now going to be able to fully function on that. He's been helping and assisting with this, but he's also been filling in some massive holes that we've had at Lake Powell. So I'm just like, Lake Powell's more important. The public safety at Lake Powell's more important. So focus on that. We'll come back and focus on our Carrying Passengers for Hire as we get there. Really, our outfitters, liveries, the outfitters themselves, we have amazing recreation outfitters or boating outfitters within the state of Utah. They take very good care of themselves, and they're really in this program. They have set the bar of what they want as the minimums in order to be called a boating an outfitter that deliver boating recreational experiences in the state of Utah. And I'm just very happy for them doing that. Next one is the boat accident reports. Brian's going to be taking the lead on this, and what that is that we need to bring and gather in all the reports. This is reports from federal agencies, our state agencies, including within our own entity, but other state agencies that may be taking reports, county agencies also bring in these reports. We're looking at them, reviewing them, entering them into a federal system and reporting them back to the United States Coast Guard. That's one of the requirements the state of Utah has with that. So let's move to the next one. Then also in this, we have an education specialist right now. We actually have an assistant for Deirdre also. But Deirdre Miller is our boating off-highway vehicle education specialist. Really big one. We're looking at online education courses. Right now, we have 2 vendors. They're basically owned by the same parent corporation. You know, big businesses have come in and swooped and bought up each other with that. But for the required personal watercraft course, that's the only state required course that's in there. But it's getting expensive, and the cost of doing business for these entities to do business, it's going up, and so those prices are going up. So Deirdre and also myself, we've been finding other avenues that we can go. We're hoping that by the end of January, we're hoping to launch this by the boat show, that we will actually have a free boating course, online boating course, that will take care of the personal watercraft requirement, and also for any boater to take, to be able to help them. And that boating course will be in reciprocity with other states in the nation, that Utah is kind of becoming a little bit of an island of not having a required boating course. We do have personal watercraft, but we don't have it for our traditional motorboats and other pleasure craft that we have out on our waterways. And so even in some of our surrounding states, if somebody wants to take their boats to another surrounding state, this will qualify as an education course for those surrounding states. So this is kind of a cool thing we got going. Outreach events, and this is really where we come in and have the assistant, Madison Snyder, to be able to come and help. And we're trying to make our presence more and getting the information out to the public. So the next one. All right, so sorry about the slide differences on this. This is moving from Google to PowerPoint. Doesn't work out all that well with that. But Jorge, my fat fingers is going through some stuff. I noticed that I eliminated a slide, so I got it fixed. So Jorge is our motorized grant analyst. Jorge has been a welcome addition to our group. Biggest thing out of this one, he's helping you all. He's going to be the go-to guy. He's going to be the one, and I'm not going to lie. We had our one meeting in 2023, and how many times did I send emails out to try to get groups together? A lot. And I think the most I got was 3 that could get together. So we could never have a quorum. And so that's been some of the issues that we were dealing with as that. Had a little bit of a struggle, but we're here during the holiday time, and I just appreciate everybody taking time away from their families, their personal time, and being here and doing this piece. So this is a good deal. But also another one is Jorge is going to be leading the boating recreation grant with that. This grant is, as I'll talk a little bit further about, this past year, 2 years ago, right, Jason? It was right when you first came on. Past 2 years ago, come effective last year, but in doing that, we noticed that there were some potential issues in the legislation in that potential bill. So we've held off, and we've now have a bill sponsor to make these corrections on this bill, or with this law that's already there, so we can get that up and running and get it out for the public to experience the modifications and the improvements that we can see in our waterways because of this grant. So this is kind of a cool thing that we're going to have here. I'm very excited to see it, and it is a statutorial piece that's in here that these applications must be reviewed by this group with that. So this is a big thing for you guys as a voting advisory council to review. And we've not statutorial had, you know, we don't have the statutorial obligation, but we have used this group for the boating access. We've also talked about the boating infrastructure grant, and we've also talked about the Clean Vessel Act grants that have come through this and have these applications reviewed by this group and voted on in this group. This is a way that we can publicly vet this process of choosing who gets these awards. So this is a great thing and a great way that you can represent those user groups that you all represent in your given disciplines. Let's move to the next one if we can, please. All right, Division of Law Enforcement. Here is like the extreme cliff notes of what's going on with this one here. So what it is we're taking 4 agencies within the Department of Natural Resources and making them combining them into one. That becomes effective January 1 of 2025. With it, that's where Steve was in essence talking about that he's chief of law enforcement right now for the Division of Outdoor Recreation, but he will be the major that over the recreation side of this agency with it. So I'm just really happy to have Steve continue to work alongside with him. So I have a little bit of a map up here to kind of give the situation here. When we do this, this will be combining all 4 agencies, but Wildlife Resources will still be running as they have been running. They're in there with that. It will take the Division of Outdoor Recreation and Division of State Parks and take the rangers and then put them together and then spread them across the state to where they're not locally based at parks only with that. So they have more of a statewide focus in that. We have 5 regions. You'll see the dark lines that are on there. Those are all regions. And then we have particular work groups are the different colors that kind of go through that. The numbers on here are kind of the crew numbers that are in this area. Now, in the region perspective, there's going to be a +1 in each one of these 5 regions that will amplify the numbers in this. But that's mainly the administrative piece of a lieutenant with that. This can be a new piece. A lot of growing pains, right, Steve? And I don't know, Steve, if you have anything else.
I mean, we currently have 65 state park rangers that are park managers or rangers or assistant park managers, and they're splitting their duties across multiple things. We have 15 outdoor recreation rangers and a couple of forestry, fire, state lands guys. We'll bring that into a smaller group, but that will be 100% of the time is focused on education and enforcement. And that's across boating and off-highway vehicles. So we're anticipating that we'll see more rangers on the water. We want them on the boats and equipment more. We want them out on the mountains and the trails, hoping that creates a safer environment for our users. For a park ranger or park manager had to split their time, and they were wearing so many different hats. And I did that for about 14 years of my career. And it's a challenge to both, make sure the park is running smoothly and take the money to the bank and plan for new activities and hire staff and do all those things and to do law enforcement. So this is a new structure that will help us with providing better supervision, more consistent information and education across the state, and not be turned inward just to the state parks, but to hitting all the bodies of water across the state. So we should see more presence like a Pineview Reservoir and Strawberry Reservoir, where our rangers have been focused at Willard Bay and at Jordan or Deer Creek. We're hoping to be able to spread kind of our contacts throughout the state to make sure that the boaters have the safety equipment they need on their boats, and then also to assist the county sheriffs in search and rescues and hopefully prevent a lot of those activities by making sure people have the safety equipment on their boats.
Fist fights at the rims, right?
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Let's move to the next one here. We're sitting on time. Okay, just trying to keep here.
We're doing pretty good.
So just had this slide out here for law enforcement, the different aspects of really what's going to be in this aspect there. So there's a lot that these officers are going to be doing, and mainly, we've got some top-notch folks really to kind of put out there that have a passion to be able to keep the public safe. So let's move to the next one on this one. All righty. So aquatic invasive species. Now, I'll turn a little bit of time to Craig in this, but let me talk about this one. Done that one more time. Yeah, there we go. What that's going to do, there's going to be a little bit of a change with aquatic invasive species. So the interdiction portion, so that is your checkpoints, the wash stations, basically everything that's not biology is going to be located within the Division of Law Enforcement with that. So they're going to be in there and doing that work and continue that work there. The biology is going to remain on the wildlife resources side. And it's going to take that coordination back and forth with that. So that's in essence what's going to be happening at that point in time. I don't know, Craig, do you have anything else that you want to say or need to say on this at all?
Yeah, sure. Just that, you know, when we originally split the program into a law enforcement component and our aquatic section component, both of those programs were under the Division of Wildlife Resources umbrella. As Ty has mentioned, with law enforcement now becoming their own division, the dance is going to be a little bit different, but Ty is 100% correct. Interdiction and decontamination is the responsibility of law enforcement. The aquatic section in the Division of Wildlife Resources is now overseeing early detection and rapid response solely. And that is early detection of all aquatic nuisance or aquatic invasive species, not just quagga. So what we're trying to do is reduce the number of things that we do and do those fewer things across a broader array of species. And it's timely. I don't know, for those of you that haven't heard, we have golden mussel now coming in from California. So we've got a recent detection of dracenid mussels in the Green River system coming in from Colorado. Of course, we have Lake Powell, our own pet project that we try to contain. But as we work hand in glove with law enforcement, we need to start figuring out how we address these new threats that are coming about, either by focusing our efforts on certain waters and doubling down on our sampling and monitoring, expanding our efforts and being able to do so through the use of novel technologies like eDNA, so that we begin to figure out where things are, and that allows us to then go and conduct traditional sampling for actual veligers and other forms, life stages on those waters where we have had hits on eDNA. In addition to what traditionally people think of as aquatic invasive species, aquatic nuisance species, we're also going to expand that program to begin addressing illegal fish movement and start having conversations with law enforcement to work hand in glove on that. Historically, we've interdicted boats, and apparently we have encountered people that have had fish in live wells and let them go on their way once they've disposed of their fish if caught. That is probably not an appropriate reaction, and that's a conversation that we're going to be having with law enforcement as well. That is one of the biggest threats. It's tantamount to catastrophic fire for us as far as fisheries management in the state of Utah. So we want to make sure that if people are caught doing that, that we provide them with the fullest penalties that we possibly can. Anyway, that's where we are as far as aquatic invasive species. I will let folks know that we were able to secure some additional funding this year through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and so was law enforcement. Hopefully that helps us bolster our programs, both from an interdiction decon standpoint on law enforcement side, but also from an early detection rapid response standpoint on our side.
Thank you, Craig. All right, let's move to the next one on that one. So the next one's going to be a legislative update. It's early, but legislative season's here. So it's going. One of there's a couple of big ones, and there are some other ones that could touch voting, but I wanted to focus on the ones that we are looking at very closely, watching, potentially working with legislators to get these to move through. First one is insurance. Effective, first one on this is the insure right reporting. This was passed last year with that and becomes effective January 1. Everybody that is required to carry insurance for right now, that insurance will be reported to insure right. It still does not mean that voters do not need to carry proof of insurance, but it is an opportunity potentially to where they're not charged with no insurance. There still could potentially be charged with no proof of insurance, but this gives an opportunity for an officer to actually contact dispatch and to pull up this information. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to be friendly to those that are law abiding and maybe left it home or it's left in the pickup truck and just haven't moved it to the boat. But we're also trying to reduce the impacts to courts too, because it is a mandatory appearance for no proof to go to the court. And so those are some things that we're trying to assist in that area there for those that are doing the right thing, but forgot to keep their paperwork in the right place. Now, another portion of that is going to be a bill that is out right now, and I'm not calling it the right way, but it's going to be the basically the reverse of using insure right. With that insure right, where we have a bill that is going to be opening up insure right to where they can report back to us of everybody that is insured for operation within the state of Utah. Then there's going to be an agent within the Division of Motor Vehicles that will be looking at that list and comparing it against the vessels that are registered within the state of Utah and also where that individual claims their residency. With that, what that is we can call it as the Montana problem to address that. Montana has, I'm going to use a term from Shane here. They have a cottage industry for legal firms to set up LLCs for whomever wants to do it for $49, right? Jason is one of the ones you found, $49.99. You can set up an LLC and then you can register all your vehicles and or purchase vehicles through that LLC. You can basically eliminate the sales tax on that purchase, and then also it goes to a lifetime registration of that vehicle vessel that you have there. And what that is that is costing our state a tremendous amount of money, especially within our voting program. Right now, we are looking at about 4,700 boats that are registered in the state of Montana. Out of that, that are visiting and using our waterways of that. There are not many Montana folks that are coming to Utah on a regular basis. With that, we know that we have some frugal and very wise individuals that want to try to do the right thing and have registered their vessels there. So that's their choice with that. But this is one that could be researching to see those that are legally Montana folks coming to visit our state versus the people that are maybe trying to circumvent the system. So that's that reverse piece. That one will be a bill that will be heard. Next one will be registration amendment. This is going to come through and do some fixes to the Utah Boating Grant Act, which was referred to here as the Utah Boating Recreation Grant. With that, but that's going to change that grant. It's going to fix a few legislative items in there, legal items, I should say, and it's going to change in essence how it's all going to go. It's not going to cost voters anymore with it. But what it's going to do is it's just going to change, in essence, the wording of how the money's being taken with that. Right now, we collect right close to an anticipated annual collection of about $1.9 million. That we could collect for this grant, that we could turn around and award back to state agencies, counties, cities, that we can kind of give back to those areas, back to the voters, about who's providing what for voters in the state of Utah. It also talks about water conservancy districts. That's some of that shoreline odor erosion control for water conservancy districts that, as we now have our wakeboard boats, the stuff that have a little bit more wake that is out there. There has been some seen, some loss of or more erosion off of high walls, which is loss of storage in that particular impoundment. So anyway, that's going to be fixing that piece. The other one too is there's going to be some additions in the definition of a personal watercraft. Some of that is that e-foils, as per a Coast Guard document, they basically said is you can either take e-foils and define them as another device, or you can include e-foils in as a personal watercraft. So it's going to be fixing that, bringing e-foils from an open motorboat. Everybody know what an e-foil is with that? Okay, an e-foil is kind of like a surfboard. Then it has a structure underneath it. It is battery powered, has an impeller and or a jet. Most of them are a propeller that's in there, and it's actually a miniature hydrofoil. You get going, the surfboard rises out of the water, and then you're riding just on some little fins. And
It's James Bond type.
yeah, they're awesome, and
They're not made for big fat guys. I can tell you that.
No, I have not been on one. So
I have. I've tried it. They're not that easy.
So I gave up on things like that with the 1970 skateboard. So anyway, but besides the point with that is the e-foils would be considered in there. Another one is going to be water jet devices. It's also going to define what a water jet device is. So that is something like a flyboard. The other one is jet lead. We haven't seen too many jet leads in the state of Utah, but I've heard they are now coming. They're starting to make a little bit more of a comeback. They kind of died down coastally. For some reason they're catching up in the inland areas of the United States. So it's going to define those, and then we're looking at as just basically including them into the personal watercraft piece. So we're doing those definitions. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is I have up there a website, which is an amazing website, a great thing for you all to dive into, and that is the URL of le.utah.gov. That is really, frankly, an amazing website where you can get in, you can look up the laws, but you can also track legislative bills with that. And I would challenge every one of you to do that. To track these bills. If you want more information and training, we will provide that. We'll provide the link for it. We'll provide on how to set up tracking for that given year, and we'll get that. You can go through and look at the bills. You can put it on keywords where you can watch these bills, and that website can do a lot of your work for you. I look at you guys. You guys are advocates. You are advocates for voting. You are advocates in your particular I just had a loss on words. Your particular piece of voting that you represent. So these are great things for you to be involved with and watch, and just be active in and see how it kind of goes instead of waiting for our next meeting and then find out what happened. I would really like to see you guys moving and watching this as this 45-day roller coaster ride that occurs as we go through with our legislative session with that. So I think basically with that, that's my last one. Do you guys have any questions at all?
Just one question. I've asked Jorge about this at the grant workshops. So is there an opportunity for the vessel grant, the Clean Vessel Act, to also include AIS cleaning? No, that's too bad.
It is only to deal with human waste. That. So that's really the big one is yeah, it's, no pun intended. It's kind of a crappy thing that it only is there, but that's what it is. It's trying to keep our waterways clean and trying to keep those you gotta remember the test that the E. coli is the new test for it. Keep those E. coli levels down so we're not having bays closed, particular canyons closed, because people are not doing the right thing and packing out their waste.
Well, it's good that there's a lot of also blending with AIS, because that, and people on the committee, on the council will probably start to realize a lot of the voting issues that we're going to be looking at are related to angling and fishing, right? Because a lot of fishermen use boats. And the AIS, as Craig mentioned, is a tsunami. Just we're lucky so far we haven't had the problems that other states have had. But we need to do more and get more money to do the inspections and the cleaning.
Yeah, thank you with that. So.
Okay.
And I got to run through another function, but I want to say thanks again for offering your expertise to the council. It means a lot to us. And so our work without this advisement. So appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, is that it? Time for your?
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Any other
Thank you for the
questions
time.
or comments? Presentation.
And
I have a quick question. I'm just real quick. Does this council have any jurisdiction or do anything with our watersheds, waterways within the watershed?
Maybe further define what are you talking about?
Like the Cottonwood Canyons, the lakes and rivers and things up there that are protected watersheds. Do we have to do any kind of anything with those at all?
No, we're not there. Mainly what this is basically looking at is advisement of laws. We're looking for public safety and we're looking for public education. And also we want to looking at kind of protection of our resources and access to those resources as we do it. So that's in essence the scope of our eyes to be there. Now, that environmental look at that is protecting what happens up in our upper elevation and how it's running down into there. I think those are great things to be focused on, but this group is really focusing on protection of our boating community with that. And a lot of it's protection from themselves with that by educating them of the right things to do that could potentially keep them out of harm's way is really what we'd like to look at with that. Other things to kind of put in here, and I know Jorge's gonna, you'll look in that folder, we'll have some items in that folder, but my ultimate dream, I know we're getting very close, so I'll hush up. My ultimate dream is that I would really love to see rule review, our voting rules that we have, our administrative rules, have those reviewed by this council themselves with that and get that input from you all and use your expertise to give us whether these are frankly, should we keep them around or should we not, or should we modify, or if we have a new use that comes in, how are we going to adapt maybe for that particular new item that comes in? So there we go. Thank you.
Craig had a comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that, erosion control through creating no wake zones, through making sure that we're actually armoring banks on shorelines where they need to be armored in and around boat ramps and boat access sites does impact water quality in some of these systems. And, if motorized boating is allowed in some of the headwater areas, which it is in some systems, then yeah, it does indirectly support protection of the water quality in those systems, and then anything that would cascade down into lower elevation reservoirs and streams.
Great. Okay, we're really getting close to the end of the meeting time, and we have a big topic to talk about, which would be our upcoming meetings and meeting schedule. And so I think we need to have a lively debate about how we would like to meet. We might want to meet frequently at the beginning just to kind of get the ball rolling, and then less frequently once we get rolling along and comfortable with our duties and issues that we want to cover. So I'll open up the discussion right now, and any ideas about what would be a good meeting schedule, meeting days and times of day.
Can I just say one thing on that topic? So if you wanted to meet more frequently in the beginning, it's certainly up to you as to what you want to do there. You can have entirely electronic meetings. So it's easier to meet electronically as opposed to in person. That's completely a possibility. If somebody wants to meet in person, we will provide a space. Like if a member of the public indicates they'd like to come to the meeting, they'll have a space to do that. If you want to come to a physical space, you'll have the opportunity to do that. But if it's easier for you to meet online and that facilitates meeting more frequently, you can certainly do that as well.
Well, I like the idea of having virtual availability at all the meetings because, you know, down in Moab, I wouldn't expect somebody from Moab to come up to a monthly meeting. I mean, that would just be too much. So I think
I think if we met quarterly at the minimum, that would be a good idea.
One question I have for you is when will we be reviewing this grant?
So
When does that have to be done by?
Craig is the administrator of the voting access grant, so I'd really like to ask Craig here, I guess.
You know, it depends on what we're trying to do with this group as they try to acclimate to new assignments. If they're not familiar with what we're trying to do, possibly more frequent meetings is beneficial. Once we kind of pin down exactly what the group wants to do, then maybe pivoting to quarterly meetings with more of an offline assignment kind of situation might be more beneficial. I don't know. I mean, I would envision to start with possibly short meetings every other month. Again, when we're talking about volunteers like you all are, who have day jobs, the 4 to 6 thing usually works out pretty well in my experience. Others can chime in if they want on that. But, you know, I think then the burden is on those of us that already have had that day job for this particular profession, continuing on to 4, 6, whatever, you know, later in the afternoon. It becomes burdensome for everybody kind of equitably. I don't know. I think 4 to 6 every other month to start, and then possibly pivoting to quarterly with make sure that we have one meeting, which is indeed the review of project proposals sometime probably around this time frame of the year.
What's your drop dead for if we're passing this time of year, Craig?
You know, it's interesting. So the Fish and Wildlife Service, what we want to do is have them have monies available to us probably early June so that we can formalize contracts with the proponents and have monies available July 1, which is, you know, the onset of the state fiscal year, which is what we write these grants for. Last year, you and I, Ty, got together and reviewed projects kind of in a maverick fashion, if you will, with no council oversight, but in an attempt to get those project proposals, the grant proposals, into the Fish and Wildlife Service sometime around, I think we ended up late March, if I remember correctly, early April. My anticipation was that would be ample time for them to turn around those grant approvals and give us a notice of award in June. We got notices of awards in November. So I would say that the project proposal review process needs to take place in February, no later. Otherwise, we're putting the burden on our proponents, and we're ending up then putting the burden on grant managers because we have to extend the grant periods and amend the grants because the performance period is not the performance period, if that makes sense. July 1 is what it's supposed to be starting at. And when you're giving people money in November, right out of the chute, they are 3 months behind the 8 ball. So, and not in a construction season either. So
let me just check in with everybody. We're at 6 o'clock. Is everybody okay if we go for another 10, 15 minutes to discuss this topic? Everybody okay with this? Okay, good. Okay. And so that, and we have to consider the other grant cycles too, right?
Yeah, so that was something that I was actually going to bring up in terms of like the actual, like the new statewide voting recreation grant. Since we don't have like actual dates on that one, we can kind of wait on that one. If I was to guess in terms of like the actual cycle for it, I would maybe guess maybe April or May. But again, take it with a grain of salt. It can change as the grant is developing. And so, but the Clean Vessel Act, I mean, applications for that close in November 30th, 15th, November.
So we're done with that.
Yeah, so we only got the one, so
For right now.
for right now. Yeah, so that's the exciting part, right?
That makes it a little bit easier, right? So do people like the idea that Craig proposed?
Once a month until we kind of get.
He said every other month, but I'm wondering if we need to have a monthly meeting for the first 2 or 3 months. Just to get started and deal with bylaws, looking at grant cycles, deciding if we want to do field trips, and just kind of map out maybe even a strategic plan for this council. And Craig and I are big strategic planners.
I would suggest that we're going to be reviewing those proposals in February, that we probably set a meeting the first part of February so we can go over that, because that's a big, important task the council needs to do. And the other question I was going to ask Jorge is, on the bylaws, can you put those up as a Google document that we can
Yes, so
add input to?
they're actually Google documents as of right now, and so after this meeting, I can share those with y'all and have like the suggestion piece to where that way nothing's like being modified, but you're able to see like the scratch out portion and see who's scratching out what, and then you guys can talk on it. For example, the next month, because it sounds like we might have one in January and then maybe another one in February, if that's the way.
It could end up January, February, it could be end of January, so we're at least at the brink of February.
See what Craig has to say.
Craig.
Monthly's a lot, folks. And my experience is that we end up meeting to meet. If we don't have things that we need to talk about, if we don't have things that are critical for us to meet and discuss, meeting monthly is a waste of everybody's time. And you start to get people feeling like, what are we doing here? It's just meeting to meet. We need to be targeted. We need to have assignments. We need to have action items. If we don't have those things, the wherewithal among committee members starts to wane, and everybody just shows up intermittently. And then when it comes time for us to have a critical meeting on voting for projects, you don't have a quorum, and all of those snafus that can happen if we're just meeting to meet, I would just caution against. So that's why I suggested every other month, and then pivoting to possibly quarterly as we, kind of get settled in, would be my suggestion. Again, we're in the holidays. Personally, we don't need to meet in January. I don't know what we would meet in January about. We can meet in February. We can wait for everybody to enjoy their holidays, come back fully healed mentally, and attack our projects in February, then discuss what we want to do. I mean, if we have action items, there's nothing says that we, I don't know what the timing needs to be for a public announcement for meetings, but I think that we could say in February, oh, we do need to meet in March. Let's meet in March. But if not, we can meet in April or whatever it is, and be more adaptive that way. Again, let the meat that needs to be chewed on drive whether or not we need to meet, if that makes sense.
Well, one thing I'll say in response to that, Craig, is that because we're forming anew, there is a lot that needs to be done up front as far as the bylaws and getting our priorities for the year figured out. So that there might be a need to meet, like I just mentioned, possibly the end of January, early February, to have that first meeting. It would be a kind of a compromise.
My recommendation would be to do it the first part of February.
Okay.
And by then, if everybody's worked on the bylaws over that time, then you could probably set aside some of that meeting to review what people came up with.
Yeah.
And then if there's an action item that needs to go with that, then you set that for the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm open to all kinds of ideas. Who's got their hand up?
I clicked on it by accident. And I don't have anything to say. Sorry.
Pushing buttons.
Okay, so we had some discussion and some proposal to meet early February. Is there a day of the week that works best for people collectively? The agency people are probably available every day.
You guys name it, we'll be there, right?
Just Wednesday worked pretty good for me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I have a lot of meetings that fall on Tuesdays for some reason. So Wednesdays are a good day for me. Any other input from the people online?
Yeah, I like Wednesday as well. This time, I mean, obviously it varies on other commitments, but I think it's a good time. It's nice to be able to plan on it.
So a Wednesday, and it's 4 to 6 p.m. Collectively a good time.
Yeah,
I like it.
This is John.
Yeah, my problem is on Wednesdays with the legislature's meeting. I'll be out there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday every week. So Wednesday nights would be really tough for me because we've got some pretty heavy meetings that night.
So maybe during the session, we could pick a day that was a what was that, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that you're?
Monday or Tuesday would work a lot better for me during legislature.
Tuesdays are good for me too.
Second Tuesdays of the month.
What about the first week? What about the first week?
The fourth.
Okay, so Tuesday, February. I'm good for February. Any conflict with Tuesday,
Yeah, I can't tell what date is what. You're garbled.
I'm sorry, we had an echo, so we couldn't hear what you were saying, Craig.
I couldn't tell what date or time you were talking about with the echo. So what are we talking about again?
Tuesday, February 4 from 4 to 6 p.m.
Tuesday, February 4 from 4 to 6 p.m.
Not hearing any conflict.
I am a no.
How about Monday the 3rd?
Would you be important for the review process, Craig?
Were we doing the review process of the,
Access.
or you plan the projects, or do you guys just want to focus on your bylaws? Or do you?
Well, you need to do both, probably.
Based on what Craig was telling us, I think we should.
Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody was on, kind of looking with that there. I would say Craig probably needs to be there on that one.
What about, is there anybody in conflict with Monday, the 3rd of February?
If I can ask a quick question. Craig, do you know roughly how many applications you have for the voting access grant?
Yeah, we have 9 this year.
Okay.
That's enough to.
I just want to make sure if that's going to be sufficient time for you all to review the actual applications as well as looking over the bylaws.
Well, I think, sorry, I'm going to speak out.
Yeah, please.
We can kill the echo.
Exactly. You yourself, thank you.
All right. With this, if we can get the projects out to you ahead of time with that, put them in those folders. You guys can go through, put them in your priorities. Maybe, what you think is potentially the important piece, which are not, have them prioritized, ranked where we're at, and we'll have an amount of money set aside and saying this is what we're able to go and award this particular year. and then let you all kind of figure those pieces out. We can do that homework ahead of time and then come in, and then we can have the real-time discussions as you guys as the group of grading these and putting them and ranking them in the way that they need to be ranked. Not need to be, but the way you see fit is having them ranked.
And would we have some ranking criteria that would be
Yes,
given
we
to us?
will provide the ranking criteria.
Okay, yeah, that'd be helpful.
Did I speak out of context, Craig, on that one?
No, you're spot on. I don't envision that taking a ton of time. Unless there's confusion about the familiarity with a location, whether or not it's needed, that type of thing, which we should be able to handle those questions fairly easily based on the proposals that we received. In the interest of time, I would suggest as far as meeting scheduling, just doodle the group, send out a scheduling poll to figure out when people are available so that we don't have this, we're not going to sort it out. If people start to have conflicts here, it will end up taking 20 minutes to try and figure out when we're going to have a meeting. One, and two, if we're going to review bylaws next meeting, my suggestion would be rather than to start from whole cloth during the meeting, to have one of the chair or the vice chair or Jorge or somebody I can assist if you need me to craft some sort of framework for the bylaws, some sort of bare bones that we can start to flesh out in the meeting rather than just start from scratch. Otherwise, again, we're wasting people's time during a meeting setting.
We have the existing bylaws, which
There is the existing bylaws, and then there's also some recommended changes in there. But again, that is us recommending changes for you. These are yours. And so that's why we want to make sure there is some things there for you to look at. You are not obligated to follow that. But I think out of anything, if we set this date, then there needs to be a drop dead date that everybody has to have their comments in on those. So then I would say, Chair, you can kind of look at it. Everybody look at it. This is what we want.
right. We have a start point already, and we can operate still with these bylaws. And we don't have to change all the bylaws at once. We can just do selected sections and keep most of what's already there.
Yep.
And so we don't have to do a complete overhaul from cloth.
There's just, I think there's little word terminology things, just with the division's name change. I mean, that's simple. I think we can rock it through this one really fast.
All right, and then on that topic, I would welcome, I will set up my own email for this committee like was recommended by Shane. And then people can send in ideas for agenda items. And I would like to add to this agenda item list of, public comment section and old business, new business, and even do a roundtable of what individual council members have on their mind or what their constituency is wanting to bring to the council. So I want to, make the agenda a little bit more flexible and take input. And I would encourage all the council members to be active in giving input, dialogue, and getting back to your constituency, because that's critical. And I've talked to previous members of this council, and there was a lot of critiques about how the council operated in the past that we can learn from and hopefully improve and make the council a lot more dynamic and effective and to really, benefit voting.
You are the public's ear, public's representation out of that. And out of that, you are the advisement of what we should be doing back to the program. So yes, I totally agree. I would love to see that and have it running.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we're going to do a doodle for the next meeting, but we're looking at as early in February as possible in a 4 to 6 p.m. time frame, and we'll come up with the date on that. Action items have been talked about, getting the grant information, proposals, and reviewing them and looking at the criteria, looking at bylaws, and I think that'll be a full agenda for that meeting anyway. Great. Are there any other suggestions, questions, comments before we have a motion to adjourn? I'll just make a comment, and it was added by Jason. Thank you all for being on the council and donating your time and committing to being part of the process. I think this is going to be a great group. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll second it.
Okay, there's no discussion on a motion to adjourn. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nobody's opposed. Okay, so meeting's adjourned. Thank you all again for
Night all. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.